Good day everyone, we are the Group C. We're going to discuss about the Shannon-Weaver model of communication. The Shannon-Weaver model of communication is a mathematical theory of communication that argues that human communication can be broken down into 6 key concepts. First, sender, encoder, channel, noise, decoder, and the last is receiver. A later version of the theory by Norbert Weber added 7 concepts, which is the feedback, which changed the model from linear to cyclical model. It's also known as the mother of all models because of its wide popularity. The model is also known as information theory or a Shannon theory because Claude Shannon was the main person who developed the theory. So let's define the definition of the Shannon-Weaver model. The Shannon-Weaver model is a linear model of communication that provides a framework for analyzing how messages are sent and received. It is best known for its ability to explain how messages can be mixed up and misinterpreted in the process between sending and receiving the message. Shannon, in his famous article titled A Mathematical Theory of Communication, where he outlined the theory, explained what the goal of his model was. The fundamental problem of communication is that of reproducing a message sent from one point, either exactly or approximately to another point. Using this mathematical theory of communication, he hoped to more effectively identify those pressure points where communication is distorted.
The Shannon-Weaver model was first proposed in the 1948 article, A Mathematical Theory of Communication, in the Bell System of Technical Journal by Claude Shannon and Warren Weaver. Shannon and Weaver were both from the United States. Claude Shannon is a mathematician, while Warren Weaver is in electrical engineering. Many believe that this mathematical theory of communication is mainly developed by Shannon alone, while Warren Weaver had minimal role. It is often called as Shannon information theory in science disciplines. Shannon developed the theory to improve the understanding of communication via telephone and eventually improve quality of the phones. It was later used as a general theory of communication.
Explanation of the Shannon and Weaver model. The Shannon-Weaver model mathematical theory of communication follows the concept of communication in a linear fashion from sender to receiver with the following steps. Number 1. Sender, information source. The Shannon-Weaver model starts with the sender or information source. They are the person or object or thing and information source who has the information to begin with. The information source starts the process by choosing a message to send, someone to send the message to. A sender can send a message in multiple different ways. It may be orally through spoken word, in writing, through body language, music, etc. Example. An example of a sender might be the person reading a newscast on the nightly news. Example. An example of a sender might be the person reading a newscast on the nightly news. They will choose what to say and how to say it before the newscast begins.
Number 2. Encoder or transmitter. The next step in the Shannon-Weaver model is the encoder. The encoder is the machine or the person that converts the idea into signals that can be sent from the sender to the receiver. The Shannon model was designed originally to explain communication through means such as telephone and computers, which encode our words using codes like binary digits or radio waves. However, the encoder can also be a person that turns an idea into spoken words. written words, or sign language to communicate an idea to someone. Examples: the encoder might be a telephone, which converts our voice into binary 1s and 0s to be sent down to the telephone lines or the channel. Another encode might be a radio station, which converts voice into waves to be sent via radio to someone.
The next step in the Shannon-Weaver model is the channel. The channel of communication is the infrastructure that gets information from the sender and transmitter through the decoder and receiver. We sometimes all call this the niche. For example, a person sending email is using the World Wide Web as a niche. A person talking on landline phone is using cables and electrical wires as their channel. If we are face-to-face, perhaps we don't have a channel except the sound waves for our voice that carry the sound from the sender's mouth to the receiver ears.
Number 4. Noise. The next step in the Shannon-Weaver model is noise. Noise interrupts a message while it's on the way from the sender to the receiver. It's named after the idea that noise could interrupt our understanding of a message. There are two types of noise, internal and external noise. Internal noise happens when a sender makes a mistake encoding a message, or a receiver makes a mistake decoding the message. Here's the 2 points where it can happen. At the point of encoding, when you misspell a word in a text message, or at the point of decoding, when someone misinterprets a sentence when reading an email. External noise happens when something external, not in the control of a sender or the receiver, impedes the message, so the external noise happens. At the point of transmission through the channel, for example, when we're having a conversation by a busy highway and the receiver having trouble hearing over the sound of cars, one of the key goals for people who use this theory is to identify the cause of noise and try to minimize them to improve the quality of the message. Examples of internal noise may include the crackling of a poorly tuned radio, a lost letter in the post, an interruption in a television broadcast, or a failed internet connection. Example of internal noise may include someone having a headache so they can't concentrate, or someone speaking with a heavy accent, or when the sender mumbles when speaking.
Decoder. The next step in the Shannon-Weaver model is decoder. Decoding is the exact opposite of encoding. Shannon and Weaver made this model in reference to communicate that happens through devices like telephones. So in this model, there usually need to be device that decodes a message from binary digit or waves back into a format that can be understood by the receiver. If we're talking about direct communication between people without the use of technology, there may still be a need for decoding. For example, you might need to decode a secret message, turn written words into something that makes sense in your mind by reading them out loud, or you may need to interpret the meaning behind a picture that was sent to you. Example, decoders can include computers that turn binary packets of 1s and 0s in pixels on a screen that makes words. A telephone that turns signals such as digital or waves back into sound, and cell phones that also turn bits of data into readable messages.
Number 6. Receiver. In the Shannon-Weaver model is receiver. The receiver is the endpoint of the original Shannon and Weaver model of the technical communication process. This is step where the person finally gets message or what left of it after accounting for noise. Example of receiver might be the person on the other end of telephone, the person reading an email you sent them, an automate payment system online that has received credit card details for payment.
Feedback. It is a final step in Shannon-Weaver model, a step in response to criticism of the linear nature of approach. When we say linear, it means that the message only going through one way. Feedback occurs when the receiver responds to the sender in order to close the communication loop. They might respond to let the sender know they got the message or to show the sender whether they got the message clearly without noise or how well they understand the message. Nonetheless, the feedback elements like a post-hoc add-on on the model and is the subject of a lot of criticism. Examples. Feedback does not occur in all situations. Sometimes when we watch a TV, we tend to let people talking on the TV know what we are thinking, we simplify watch the show.
So let's proceed to advantages of Shannon and Weaver model of communication. Number 1, explain the barriers to effective communication very well. The Shannon-Weaver information theory was revolutionary because it explained the concept of noise in details. It shows how information is interacted and help people identify areas for improvement in communication. For example, the model also includes 3 levels where communication can be interrupted. These are technical problem, semantic problem, and lastly is the effectiveness problem. So let's define what's technical problem first. Technical problem where the decoder, encoder, or channel cause the problem. For example, when a machine important for the communication of message has a fault. Second, the semantic problem. This is when the message was sent in different from message that was received. So lastly, the effectiveness problem. This explains how well the message can cause a response or reaction from the receiver.
Number 2 is break down communication in the understandable parts. The model enables us to look at the critical step in the communication of information from the beginning to end. Number 3, transferable for multiple situations. The communication model was originally made for explaining communication through technological device, however, it's been used to explain just about any forms of communication you can think of.
The conclusion. The Shannon-Weaver model of communication is the mother of all models of human communications. It also known as an information theory. It is mathematical theory, considered to be a linear communication model created by Claude Shannon and Warren Weaver. It is considered to be a highly effective communication model that explains the whole communication process from information source to information receiver.
Examples of the Shannon-Weaver model of communication. The Shannon-Weaver model of communication was originally proposed for technical communication, such as through telephone communications. Nonetheless, it has been widely used in multiple different areas of human communications. Here are some examples of how the Shannon-Weaver model works. A telephone conversation. A sender. Sender is the person who has made the call and wants to tell the person at the other end of the phone call something important. The encoder. The telephone turns the person's voice into a series of binary data packages that can be sent down to the telephone lines. Channel. The channel is the telephone wires itself.
Noise. Noise may occur if the speaker mumbles, the telephone wires are interrupted in a storm, or the telephone encoders, decoders are malfunctioning. Decoder. The telephone that the receiver is holding will turn the binary data package it received back into sounds that replicate the voice of the sender. Receiver. The receiver will hear the sounds made the decoder and interpret this message. Feedback. The receiver may speak in response to let the sender know what they heard or understood.
Here are one example of Shannon-Weaver model of communication. Listening to the radio. We have sender, encoder, and channel. In the sender, the radio host will speak into his microphone, the encoder. The microphone in his computer will turn the voice of the radio host into the binary packet of data that are ready to be transmitted. The radio transmitter is also part of the encoder. It will turn that data into radio waves ready to be transmitted. The channel will be the radio wave sent by the radio transmitter.
Channel. The channel are the radio waves that are sent out by the radio transmitter. Noise. Noise is most likely to occur if the receiver's transistor radio is not tuned to the correct frequency, causing statics, or if the receiver's transistor radio is too far away from the radio transmitter. Decoder. The decoder is the receiver's transistor radio, which will turn the radio waves back into the voice. Receiver. The receiver is the person listening to the radio who will hopefully receive the full message loud and clear if the noise has been avoided or minimized. Feedback. Feedback is difficult in these steps. However, the radio channel may send out researchers into the field who will interview listeners to see how effective their communication has been.
A face-to-face discussion is another example of how Shannon and Weaver model of communication might work from human communication. Sender. The person starting conversation will say something to start the communication process. Encoder. The encoder step is usually used to explain a machine that encodes a message for transmission. For a face-to-face discussion, you could consider the encoder to be the ways the sender turns their idea into intelligible words and sentences. Channel. There isn't any wire or radio waves involved here. Instead, the sound is transmitted through sound waves made by the voice.
Noise. The sender may have mumble or have an accent that causes the message to be distorted, which is called internal noise. There might be a wind, rain, or traffic that made the message hard to hear. External noise. Decoder. While there's no machine here, the listener still has to turn the winds they hear into legible message in their mind. Receiver, the second person in the conversation. Feedback. Face-to-face involves a lot of feedback, as each person turns to talk.